And Canada called me a couple of weeks ago. They want to be part of it. To which I said, well, why don't you just join our country? You become 51, become the 51st state, and you get it for free. So I don't know if that made a big impact, but it does make a lot of sense. It actually makes, because they're having a hard time up there in Canada now, because as you know, with tariffs, everyone's coming into our country. We have more investment than we've ever had.
Hello everyone, we meet again, my friends. You remember how we just talked about President Trump dealing with that tough speech from Putin over in Russia? Well, it's like the world's full of these international headaches these days. Now, let's shift our gaze a bit closer to home. Up north to our good neighbors in Canada. There's been some chatter lately about a comment from Trump that's got folks talking. Trump says Canada should become 51st state of U.S. if they want to. Now, I know that sounds big, but don't fret. We'll unpack it nice and slow like we always do. I've seen leaders toss around ideas like this before, often with a wink. Pull up a chair, pour yourself some tea, and let's chat about what this really means. You know, back in my day, we'd sit around the kitchen table hashing out world events just like this, sharing what we've heard, bouncing ideas off each other. What do you make of it so far? Anyway, let's dive in. This all popped up again just a couple of days ago. On September 30th, 2025, President Trump was speaking to top U.S. military leaders at the Pentagon. Folks like generals and admirals, the real brass. He was talking about our new missile defense system, what he calls the Golden Dome. Now, that's a fancy name, isn't it? It's this big project supposed to be like a shield in the sky, spotting incoming missiles from places like Russia or China, figuring out their path, and shooting them down with our own interceptors before they cause any harm. Trump says it'll cost around $175 billion and be done by 2029. He mentioned how Canada had reached out a couple of weeks back, wanting to be part of this protection. Makes sense since missiles could fly over their territory too. And here's where the line came in. He said, Canada called me a couple of weeks ago, they want to be part of it, to which I said, well, why don't you just join our country? You become 51, become the 51st state. You get it for free. He added that Canada's having a rough go with the tariffs we've put in place, and maybe this could fix things. They're having a hard time up there in Canada now because, as you know, with tariffs everyone's coming into our country. He put it. Pause there a moment. Doesn't that sound like Trump being Trump? Half serious, half poking fun, but with a point behind it. This isn't the first time Trump's floated this idea. It's come up before, often tied to trade talks. But why now, you ask? Well, let's think about that together. Back in early 2025, right after Trump took office again, he slapped 25% tariffs on goods from Canada and Mexico. He said it was because of migrants and drugs slipping across the borders into the U.S. Stuff like fentanyl, which has been a real plague down here, tearing families apart. Those tariffs got paused for a month in February after some talks. But the tension's still simmering, like a pot that's about to boil over. Trump met with Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, or at least they had calls, and Trudeau promised more border security like extra agents, drones, and money to fight drug trafficking. Canada's even pledged about $900 million for those fixes, showing they're trying. Up in Canada, they've got their own politics brewing. Trudeau's been under fire from his party, reshuffled his cabinet, and folks are worried about the economy with inflation and job worries. Some are even talking about leadership changes up there. So this 51st state talk, it's popping up amid all that back and forth on trade and borders. Trump mentioned Canada might have to pay $61 billion or so to join the Golden Dome, otherwise big money, right? But as a state, free ride. It's like he's dangling a carrot while holding a stick. What do you reckon? Is this just bluster or is there more to it? All right, let's dig a little deeper. What does this mean for us down here? You and I, we've seen how words from leaders can ripple out. For U.S. policy, it's classic Trump, using big statements to push for better deals. He sees these tariffs as a tool to get Canada to tighten up on migrants and drugs. Things like fentanyl coming south, which hits our communities hard. Remember those stories of folks losing loved ones to that stuff? It's heartbreaking. It fits his America First approach. Protect our borders, boost our economy, make sure we're not getting the short end. But for trade relations with Canada, that's our biggest partner. We swap billions in goods every year, cars from Ontario, Oil from Alberta, lumber from British Columbia. If tariffs stick around, prices go up for everyone. Cars might cost more, groceries too. Think about filling up your tank or buying a new fridge. Trump's team says it's temporary pressure, like twisting an arm to get cooperation, but it could strain things long-term, maybe even lead to a full-blown trade war if things escalate. As for Trudeau's response, he called the tariffs very dumb and hit back with his own 25% on US stuff like beer, steel, and even whiskey. Canada's poured money into border fixes, $900 million for drones, agents, and tech, to show they're serious about working together. But Trump's quip stings up there, like he's not taking them as equals. Some Canadian MPs are saying it's not funny anymore, and it's putting pressure on their side to respond tough. Let's chew on that. Does this help negotiations, or just make them tougher? In my experience, a little humor can break the ice, but too much and it freezes things solid. Now, to put this in perspective, let's look back a ways. Like I always say, history helps us see clearer. This isn't new for Trump. Back in his first term, around 2018, he joked about Canada becoming a state during NAFTA talks. Remember NAFTA? That was the old trade deal with Canada and Mexico, signed back in the 90s. Trump called it a bad deal for us, renegotiated it into USMCA, using tariffs as leverage, then to threaten him high to get concessions on dairy, autos, and more. It worked. Got a new agreement that folks say is fairer, but tensions go even further back. Think about the border after September 11th. More security checks, longer waits at crossings, folks grumbling about delays. Or way back in the 1800s during the War of 1812, when some Americans talked about annexing Canada outright. We've had spats over lumber tariffs, dairy quotas, even water rights from the Great Lakes. Leadership changes amp it up. Trudeau's more globalist, likes international deals and climate stuff. Trump's protectionist, focused on US jobs first. It's like oil and water sometimes, but we've always found a way to mix, haven't we? Like that time in the 80s with acid rain talks, worked it out. Or softwood lumber disputes that drag on but get resolved. So, is this just another chapter or something bigger? What say you? To be thorough, let's hear from different folks on this. After all, no one's got the whole truth alone. It's like piecing a puzzle with friends. From the US side, Trump supporters love it. They say it's smart negotiating. Why give free defense if they're not helping with borders? Officials like Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick hint at deals if Canada steps up on security. Trump's called Canada a paper tiger in other talks, but here it's half joke, half prod, meaning they're not as tough as they seem. Some everyday Americans on X are chuckling, saying it'd make sense geographically. Same culture, shared history. Up in Canada, leaders aren't laughing. Trudeau dismissed it, focusing on joint task forces against drugs, like cross-border teams to stop fentanyl. MPs call it offensive and not funny anymore, worrying it undermines their sovereignty. Public reactions mixed. Some ex-posts joke about it, like better taxes under Trump, or 51st state means NHL in more US cities. Others worry it'll hurt jobs, with layoffs already hitting places like Imperial Oil in Calgary. One post even said, Trump will buy Canada cheap after tariffs weaken us. Neutral experts, like analysts from think tanks such as Size or the Atlantic Council, say it's rhetoric to poke Canada amid stalled talks, putting pressure without real intent to annex. Economists warn tariffs could spark a trade war, hurting both sides. Canada more, since we're their biggest market by far. One said, the fact Canada's mentioned isn't good. Means we're in the spotlight for the wrong reasons, could lead to more demands. First Nations in Canada are speaking up too, opposing related pipeline ideas, saying it threatens their lands. It's a chorus of voices, some angry, some amused, some analytical. Reminds me of family dinners where everyone chimes in. Phew, we've covered the what, the why, the history, and the voices, and then some. We've chewed it over like old pals, haven't we? So what's the balanced takeaway here, friends? Trump's words are bold, often with a chuckle, but they highlight real issues. Borders, trade, security. Things like drugs and migration affect us all, and fair deals keep everyone prospering. Canada's our ally, our friend across the longest peaceful border in the world. Shared lakes, hockey rivalries, family ties. Pushing too hard could cool that friendship, raise costs for us all, maybe even divide folks more. But talking it out like neighbors should usually sorts things. Compromise, you know? We've done it before. Keep an eye on it, stay informed, share your thoughts with folks around you. And remember, good fences make good neighbors, but open doors build trust. Thanks for listening and pondering with me. Until next time, God bless.